Hello and welcome back to our podcast. Once again, I'm joined by Will, of course, because it's his podcast as well. So
Hello.
this week is the start of a Bigfoot season, as we call it. I think that's Sasquatch season. Sorry. So the first episode today is going to be about Sasquatch slash Bigfoot. We're going to throw in the old skunk ape there too, because skunk ape's kind of different from what Sasquatch is.
Yeah.
So, and then next week, as you can already tell, it's not a secret, so I'll just say it now. We're going to cover the Yeti as well as some other Asian sort of variations of the Sasquatch myth.
The Bigfoot.
And the week after will be the Yowie, which is in Australia, and we're going to be doing a Christmas episode, so it'll be on a Saturday instead of a Sunday for Christmas. So today, like I said, we're talking about Bigfoot, but as always, we always do a little discussion at the beginning about current events, and I hope you're all staying safe with this new variant going around. But we're not going to get into that too much. But how are you doing, Will?
Not bad. How are
Yeah,
you?
I'm good. We're just gonna pretend that we didn't just spend like the last 2 hours playing Civilization 5 together with Tom. Um,
Yeah.
so what do you know about Bigfoot?
Oh, he's big
Well, that
feet,
is where the
bro.
name derives from, which
He's got
I'll talk to.
big. He's got some
Did you actually do
big
any
feet.
research on this episode? Did you even write
Of
your
course, no.
episode? So you have that content.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can
Yeah.
do that after Christmas then. So
Yeah.
current events, big and
The
hairy.
big and hairy.
Well, you like Bigfoot for me. I'm quite a big fan of. Like, I don't necessarily
Oh
believe in
yeah, I
him.
know.
Like we've always said, we don't necessarily believe in the stuff that we're talking about, but the idea of it's kind of cool to me. Um,
Yeah.
so what do you know anything about Bigfoot?
Not really. No, I don't know much. Bigfoot's mainly your thing. I haven't really taken
Well, the
an
skunk
interest in
ape,
Bigfoot much.
also what we're also going to be covering today is completely, so it's not completely different, but it's a bit different to the regular sort of Sasquatch. The
Yeah.
other, the Yowie maybe I know a bit about, but the other ones that we're going to cover, the Yeti I know a bit about, but the other ones that we're going to cover in the Yeti episode I have no idea about. So maybe I'll give one of them for you to research. Maybe. Um.
Uh,
So
Sounds
today's
good.
episode, as we said, the Legend of Bigfoot. So, what is Bigfoot, right? So Bigfoot it's
Big
Sasquatch,
motherfucker.
right? Bigfoot's more of like a nickname. Sasquatch is like the animal,
Yeah.
right? This is our first cryptid, right? I think that we're covering today. Oh wait, no, the big cats
I
we
think
did,
so.
they count as cryptids. Um,
Oh yeah.
so I've obviously laid out the episode here. Sort of like, so the first thing I want to start off with is like, what is Bigfoot, right? So Bigfoot, I've got this definition off of Wikipedia. I think this is like the Wikipedia definition. So Bigfoot, also commonly referred to as Sasquatch, is a purported, I don't know what that means, to be honest. Ape-like creature said to inhabit the forests of North America, a prominent subject within Canadian and American folklore. Supposed evidence of the existence of Bigfoot includes numerous anecdotal visual observations as well as disputed video and audio recordings, photographs, and large casts of footprints. So, do you know what anecdotal means? So basically, anecdotal visual
Nope.
observations basically means telling a story of what you've seen. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's pretty much it. So so
Purported, by the way. appearing or stated to be true, though not necessarily.
So basically, it
AKA
says
alleged.
it supposedly looks like an ape, basically, which is quite common,
Yeah.
right? Common thing. Like it's a big ape, big hairy man.
Yeah.
There is a lot. There's a lot in the like
Hairy man.
indigenous culture about like hairy men and things like
Yeah.
that. So Bigfoot is also known as Sasquatch, and the name Bigfoot actually came from like the evidence of, in quotation marks, evidence of like giant footprints casts that they have. That's where the name Bigfoot actually comes
Yeah.
from. So you
Pretty cool.
got, there are like tellings of other creatures similar to Sasquatch around the world, which we're going to be covering. You know, such as we've got the skunk ape, which we're going to be covering in the towards the end of this episode. The Yeti, the Yeren, the Almas, I think it's pronounced, in Asia, and the Australian Yowie.
Yeah.
So these all of these creatures that we're talking about, they are ingrained into the cultures of their region. So like in Asian, so they're that around that culture, right, in that area. You know, they're ingrained. Like these creatures are ingrained. They're not just like, you know, people telling stories all of a
Yeah.
sudden. These go back, you know. These go back in time. Yeah, these go
They've been there for
far
ages.
back, and so yeah, the Yeti, Almas, and Yeren. I think I'm saying those right. I know the Yeti ones are in Asia. The Sasquatch and skunk ape are in the US, and obviously the Yowies in Australia. So Sasquatch is like commonly reported in the Pacific Northwest, which I can actually talk to you about a bit afterwards. I did do some research on the Pacific Northwest and what that covers. Whereas like the skunk ape is reported in the southeastern US, basically. So
Yeah.
as I've laid out in this plan, it says one of the points was to talk to you about your beliefs and opinions on Bigfoot is. Before we go into this, so what are your beliefs and opinions on it?
The thing is about it is like I'm not going to believe it unless I
Yeah,
get like
which is like
solid
most of us.
evidence. It's going to be about everything, like, but it's the evidence that has been put forward. It's never like a good camera. It's always a shitty fucking pixelated, like they always are. There's no solid evidence, bro, and that's like the main.
But what
thing
about
with
your
me.
opinion on Bigfoot itself, like on the Sasquatch? Like, what is your opinion on that?
Opinion? He's
But like,
a pretty
do
swell
you
guy.
do you think like
What?
like so? I know, like you said that, like obviously your belief is that I want opinions. Like your belief is I don't believe him unless you prove it, which is my belief too. I mean, I love the idea of it, but like, so your opinion on like how can I word this? On the actual creature itself, like your opinion on this big ape-like creature running around the forest of, you know, northwest of the United States in Canada.
It's pretty interesting to. It's a pretty
Because it's
interesting
one of the most
creature
popular ones, right?
because it's not. Yeah, it's fucking very
it's an
popular.
extremely popular
Yeah.
subject.
So it's got a wide audience of the people that believe in it. It's kind of interesting because it's shaped like
Big
it's kind
monkey.
of like
Yeah,
a
it
big
is.
monkey.
Essentially,
Big monkey.
there are I've
It's a
got some other beliefs and stuff I'll cover, but like Bigfoot's very popular, right? Like it's, you know, everyone knows what
very
Bigfoot is.
popular.
Not doesn't mean they believe in it, but they know what it is, right? Yeah. So
They know of it.
yeah. So I think that's that's the thing. It's very ingrained in popular culture.
Yeah.
So there are loads of sightings, though, isn't there?
Yeah. No. Yeah. There's loads of people that say they've seen it, plus they have evidence. But as I
I
said, it's
mean,
not
yeah,
solid
that's what I mean. Is
evidence.
like a lot of like hair samples. Apparently, there's loads of hair samples that are like
Yeah.
unknown primate hair that they found in the woods in North America and things like that. So
Yeah.
obviously Bigfoot's it is an indigenous culture a lot. There are a lot of stories about it, and things like that. there are sightings. Sightings are like in the number of thousands. Like they are like
Yeah.
they
No.
are
Yeah. Yeah.
they are in the thousands, right? Um,
Yeah.
even the hundreds of thousands, I'd say, in my opinion. Um,
Oh,
they're described as like a large
definitely. Yeah.
ape-like figure, like muscular. They're usually like tall, between like 6 and 9 feet tall. Essentially, like 9 foot is supposed to be like a big one, you know, like
Yeah.
alpha male kind of thing,
Nine's
right?
fucking wow.
So
Yeah.
I have wait. I'm
People,
just saving an image right now.
they, people often say they
That's
smell bad
actually
as
yeah.
well.
So they always have like some sort of sweaty smell. I think I've read somewhere,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
that's more of the skunk ape, and I'll go into that a bit. So
Yeah.
they've described to have like black, silver, brown, or even like red hair. So they're all sort of different. Um,
Yeah.
the eyes are they're described to glow in the night apparently, whereas great apes don't have this feature. Like us, we don't have that feature. Like our eyes don't have the glow
Yeah.
if you shine something on them, they don't glow, right? Which is what also gives people
Yeah.
the idea that they're not real. Is that if they were a primate, they wouldn't have that sort of feature. Um,
Yeah.
and the footprints are reported to be as large as like 24 inches long and 8 inches wide. So like it's like
Fucking
that's
hell.
like what
Huge.
4 times the size of your penis. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I'm
Yeah,
talking
you
about
wish. My penis is
the wide,
big.
the 8 inches wide. If you can't do math, that means I'm saying Will has a 2 inch penis. Okay, just gonna break that down for those who don't want
Yeah.
to do the math. So Bigfoot is usually like in the Pacific Northwest and Canada. I believe there are sightings in Canada. But Pacific
Yeah.
Northwest. Yeah, so I can go into that, but first, this is more about the indigenous history of it, sort of thing. So I'm gonna send you this image. I'm gonna put it.
You
I'll
know,
just
then?
send it straight to you on Discord. This image it has no context just yet, but I will read about it. So you see that image right there, yeah? Okay, so that image,
Yeah.
yeah, which I will now put up
Cave
on the
painting.
screen for you guys watching on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify or Anchor, or even listening on YouTube, if you go on Wikipedia, Bigfoot's Wikipedia page, it's the image in the indigenous history. So let me just get that up for you guys now on the screen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
Fucking hell. The
this is
waiting,
the
lad.
image here. So this is what we're gonna talk about right now. So, um, so Tool River Indian Reservation, California, petroglyphs, which I didn't actually search. I don't think the definition of those. So if you could do that real quick for me, created by a group of U-cuts, I think they're called, at a site called U-cuts or
You trust.
U-coots or something like that. At a site called Painted Rock, are alleged by some to depict a group of Bigfoots called the Family. Local tribespeople call the largest of the glyphs Hairy Man, and they are estimated to be between 500 and 1,000 years old. So these are old paintings. This is a recreation, I should mention.
Yeah. Petroglyph meaning a rock carving, especially a
Okay, so this I
prehistoric
should
one.
mention this
There you go.
is a redesign of that painting.
Painting.
It's not the original.
Yeah.
Ecologist,
Yeah.
which I learned was ecology is the study of organisms and how they interact with the environment around them. They study the relationship between living things and their habitats, basically. Ecologist
Yeah.
Robert Pyle argues that most cultures have accounts of human-like giants in their folk history, and that's where that will come in soon. Many names of the creatures in folklore usually end meaning like wild man or hairy man sort of thing. Some regional
Yeah.
versions tell more dangerous creatures. The Stiyaha, I think that's how you say it, or the Quie. I think I'm saying them. I'm sorry if I'm butchering these names. Come out at
Yeah.
night. These are creatures. Children were told not to say the names to avoid being taken away by the monsters and killed. Well, I hope that doesn't happen to me. Yeah, sort
Kind of like
of.
the
Yeah,
skinwalkers.
sort of, yeah.
Like saying where you
And the Iroquois tell of an aggressive
got nothing.
hair-covered giant with rock-hard skin known as the Otniyahe. I think I'm saying that right, I'm sorry. Or stone giant, also commonly referred to as the Genosqua. I think that's how you say it. So yeah, that's like those are some other sort of creatures, like stories, local legends that sort of people believe that the Bigfoot legend comes from. There's Paul Kane, I don't know who that guy is.
Yeah.
Reported stories by the natives about Skookums. I don't know what they are. A race of cannibalistic wild men living on the peak of Mount St. Helens in southern Washington State in 1847. So there are actually sort of a common thing that I found with Bigfoot. What the stories around sort of like the local legends of like hairy men in the mountains are cannibalistic. Like
Mhm.
they eat people, whereas
They do be
you
eating
know
people.
Bigfoots don't, like that's not what they're reported to do. So
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure about all of this. Um, but this is literally just sort of like the indigenous history, basically. Related to the area, an alleged
Yeah.
incident in 1924 in which a violent encounter between a group of miners and a group of ape men occurred. So they fought for the area. A group of miners and a group of like apparent ape men. They were like it was an alleged incident. It's not. It's told. It wasn't 100% confirmed.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
July 16th, 1924. These allegations were reported in an issue of the Oregonian. I don't know if that's how you say that, which has become a popular piece of Bigfoot lore. The area is now actually referred to as Ape Canyon. Like the area where all that happened is now like referred to as Ape Canyon.
Yeah.
So when I mentioned that, all right. So what are your thoughts so far about all this?
It's quite interesting about, especially about
Yeah. So that
the
image, right?
petroglyphs. It's yeah. The
Yeah.
rock
So
paintings,
like,
the rock carvings.
remember when before we actually planned this episode when I said about Bigfoot, when I said these things are in they're in these cultures, right?
Oh yeah, they're
I think it might have
deep
been on the
rooted.
Skinwalker episode when we were talking about like different cultures having different stories, and I said like Bigfoot is not
Yeah.
just like a popular thing; it's ingrained in this culture, and they've
Yeah.
reported of Bigfoots, and there's even stories like there's a show called Finding Bigfoot, which I'll talk about a bit more on Animal Planet, which what they did an episode where they spoke to like this Native American tribe, and they spoke about how they would, if you respect them, they'll respect you, right? And there were stories of
Yeah.
these tribes having Bigfoots just stand literally just not far away from them in the woods, just wait, like just chilling with them, or coming
Oh
into the
shit.
camp with them. There are stories about that sort of happening and things like that. And so yeah, so as I mentioned, the Pacific Northwest, right? It's not necessarily Pacific Northwest, but the 1/3 of the entire
Yeah.
sightings are from the Pacific Northwest, and this covers
Holy shit.
Washington State, Idaho, Oregon, Alaska, California, Western Montana, parts of Wyoming, um, Canada, which is apparently Yukon and British Columbia. So, like other prominent areas
Yeah.
for sightings include rural areas of the Great Lakes region, right, and the southern US is obviously the Skunk Ape. So the Great
Yeah.
Lakes region, I had to obviously do research on where these are. So the Great Lakes region is like it's a binational thing, which means it covers a part of two countries. So it's Canadian American, and it covers
Yeah.
Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Minnesota, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Ontario, Quebec. I think Quebec was maybe considered part of the Great Lakes, but that's a lot of states just off of that, right? That covers. So
That is
you've
a
got
lot.
mountains, you've got Rocky Mountain,
Yeah.
you've got like these national parks, you've got these like rural areas where they could be sort of thing, right? Um. And
Yeah.
data collected from the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, so the BFRO, which are the ones who do the investigations in the Animal Planet show Finding Bigfoot. Um, so according to their
Yeah.
Bigfoot sightings database in 2019, Washington has over 2,000 reported sightings. This is Washington State. California has over
Mhm.
1,600. Pennsylvania has over 1,300. New York and Oregon have over 1,000, and Texas has just over 800. So Bigfoot has actually been
Wow.
regarded as the first widely popularized example of pseudoscience in American culture. The pseudoscience is like what was the definition of pseudoscience? I can't remember what that was. It was like science sort of based off of stories or like not like confirmed 100% sort of thing.
Pseudoscience meaning a collection of beliefs or practices mistakenly regarded as being based on scientific
Yeah, sort
method.
of. So the names of Bigfoot,
Yeah.
right? So obviously you got Bigfoot. This is where I'm going to tell you this story is a little. It's not long, but it's like quite a lot of words. So this is the full
Yeah.
story that I've got of apparent. Well, it's probably like cut into bits, but of where the Bigfoot name came from. Okay, so in
Yeah.
1958, Jerry Crew, a logging company bulldozer operator in Humboldt County, California, discovered a set of large 410 mm 16-inch human-like footprints sunk deep within the mud in the Six Rivers National Forest. Upon informing his co-workers, many claim to have seen similar tracks on previous job sites, as well as telling of odd incidents such as an oil drum weighing 450 pounds or 200 kg having been moved without explanation. The logging company soon began utilizing the term Bigfoot to describe the mysterious culprit. Crew, who initially believed someone was playing a prank on them, once again observed more of these numerous massive footprints and contacted reporter Andrew Genzoli of the Humboldt Times newspaper. Genzoli, I think I'm saying his name, or Genzoli, interviewed, we'll call him Big G. Big G interviewed lumber workers and wrote articles about the mysterious footprints, including introducing the name Bigfoot in relation to the tracks and the local tales of large, hairy wild men. A plaster cast was made of the footprints, and the crew appeared holding one of the casts on the front page of the newspaper on October 6th, 1958. I should have got that picture actually, if I could. The story spread rapidly as Big G began to receive correspondence from major media outlets, including the New York and LA Times. As a result, the term Bigfoot became widespread as a reference to an apparently large, unknown creature leaving massive footprints in Northern California. In 2002, the family of Crew's deceased co-worker Ray Wallace claimed that their father had been secretly making the large footprints with carved wooden feet, and that he was responsible for the tracks. Despite the Wallace family's claim, Willow Creek is a big part of like Bigfoot lore. Willow Creek and Humboldt County are considered by some to be the
Yeah.
Bigfoot capital of the world. So that's basically where he got the name from, because they found like a bunch of big footprints and all that. So sort of what's your feelings on it at the moment?
Oh. It's quite an interesting story how people are like, oh yeah, Homer making those big feet
Do
wooden
you know what
fucking
confuses me
wood.
is
But
obviously when you think of California, you don't really think of like the mountains
mm-mm,
and the. I mean, that's probably because I'm not from California, right?
no, no,
But
no.
I think
Yeah, but no. I
the thing that
instantly
really
don't
brought
think
like
of
the
fucking
national forests
mountains.
and the woods and that into me was when we watched Teen Wolf, because that's obviously in California, but it's in Northern California near
Yeah,
Oregon, where all the and obviously we know Oregon's full of like woods
yeah,
and mountains because we're big fans of Grimm, um, and yeah, but like that's really it's actually kind of it. Bigfoot, believe it or not, was actually one of the things that I sort of learned about, sort of like the landscape, you could say, of California, because of that.
yeah.
Because I'd watch like shows about it, and they'd be in California. So, but I don't know. It interests me because, like I said, I'm not saying it's real, but it's but
But
like
you're
it's kind of
not
cool,
saying
right?
it.
So, so
Yeah, that's
there
very fun.
are different regions have different names for it. So you have the skunk ape, which Florida and other southern states call it, but that's not necessarily the same as Sasquatch, and we'll go into that. The grass man from Ohio, the Fook monster, Arkansas, Boggy Creek monster, swamp stalker. They're from Arkansas. Wood booger, Virginia. The monster of Whitehall, New York. Momo, Missouri. Momo means Missouri monster.
Yeah,
Honey Island swamp monster in Louisiana,
yeah,
or Cajun Sasquatch. Dewey Lake monster, Michigan. Mogollon monster, Illinois. Big Muddy monster, Southern Illinois. So the Fook monster is actually quite interesting. I looked into some of these. The rest of them are sort of like just names for Sasquatch, whereas the Fook monster had like more of like a quite a
yeah.
horror-esque story to it. It's similar to Bigfoot. It was sighted in the rural town of Fook. I think I'm saying that right. In Arkansas, sighted during the early 1970s. Apparently, it attacked a local family, and I think it killed them. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not 100%. No, I didn't actually. It influenced a lot
Fucking
of
hell.
local culture. So businesses were like they capitalized on the local law of
Yeah.
this. Like the Fook monster. Like when you go there, tourists were like, going for that sort of shit. And There was actually a docudrama
Yeah, yeah,
horror,
yeah.
which is the Legend of Boggy Creek, and it became the 11th highest grossing film of 1972, considered a cult classic today. So there was a film based on that sort of monster, like its own sort of thing, like steps away from Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Steps away from just the
Yeah.
Sasquatch sort of thing. So there are different behaviors of Bigfoot. Do you know any?
I actually don't, surprisingly.
So, have you ever watched anything on Bigfoot?
I used to watch Finding Bigfoot, but it's very, very black briefly. But you literally when I watch it kind of go downstairs, I watch it for like 10, 20 minutes and I go
I mean,
upstairs and that's about
I'm a
it.
big fan of the show, not just like because of the
So
Bigfoot shit, but because I'm just genuinely sort of I like the people, and it's not
yeah,
on
yeah,
anymore,
no,
I don't
yeah.
think. But so there's a couple of behaviors,
Oh.
and they're all very similar reported behaviors. Um, and they've used these behaviors to sort of understand how the animal would survive and do things. They don't treat it as if it's like this
Yeah.
supernatural thing, like what they do with ghosts, right? They treat it as if it's just an animal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they put like two and two together. They essentially they're trying to study this creature. Um,
Mm.
so there's some things as such as so they throw rocks, right? But they throw rocks at
Yeah,
things,
no,
but
yeah, I heard
this
that.
can be like a territorial thing, but it can also be a way to communicate. Um, which which is like very common, like commonly reported by people having like Bigfoot sightings, is like rocks being thrown at them or rocks being thrown near them, sort of thing. And like I remember there was a story I was watching a
Yeah.
documentary about, and they were in like this cabin with this like sort of metal roof, and in from the woods there was like a creature sort of growling, and it was like lobbing these huge rocks at the roof, and it was like sound like they said it sounded
Oh,
like
yeah.
gunshots in the house. It was that loud, and it was throwing these huge
Jesus.
rocks, and then they went outside, and it hit one of the rocks actually hit the guy. Um, I mean,
Oh
I
shit.
don't really know what else
Yeah.
happened after that. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of got bored and stopped watching. Um,
Oh
yeah,
well,
he
yeah,
got hit
he
by
got
the
hit
rock.
by a
I don't
rock.
really
I ain't
care.
watching no more.
So yeah, and like that's a very common behavior, and I think the other common behavior would be wood knocking, but it's only believed to be like a
Yeah,
way
I
of
heard that, yeah.
communicating. Like wood knocks are supposed to be
Yeah?
very common, and a lot of time on Finding Bigfoot, they would knock on the wood, and they would get a response, and with I'll
Yeah.
talk about it a bit more, but obviously there's howls that people report. But howls can be misinterpreted very quickly by for
Yeah.
things like coyotes or wolves, that kind of thing. They can
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
misidentified and things. So broken branches and like twisted foliage. So like they like root like so they like break all the branches down to move through the trees. Apparently they twist like all the bushes around, and that's
Mm.
supposed to apparently be um a common sort of behavior. Like they don't know why they do it, but
Yeah.
they just do it, right? So there's a little
Just do
story
it.
here. In
Yeah.
Washington State, a team of amateur Bigfoot researchers claim to have discovered nests. They had a primatologist, which obviously studied primates, study them. The conclusion was that they appeared to have been created by primates. So they found these nests, right? And I'm assuming they were similar to like
Yeah.
like gorilla nests and things, and
Yeah. No.
so it
Yeah.
was determined that it was very likely to have been created by a primate, which obviously is like monkey, and that's essentially what Sasquatch is, right?
Monkey?
It's a big monkey, essentially. So obviously there's a lot of sightings at night, right? So they believe that
Yeah.
Sasquatch has like nocturnal tendencies, which obviously means it likes to go out at night, it likes to hunt at night, that sort of thing. It likes to explore at night. It's an
Yeah.
elusive animal. It likes to hide under the darkness of the night, basically, and yeah, and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. I think they hunt at night. I'm not 100% sure how they hunt at night. I don't know 100% sure how they hunt. Um, they believe like I think there was stories about they use like rocks and they've like hit like deers in the head with rocks and things like that, which which shows
Jesus
some sort of like
Christ.
intelligence, right? It's not just like yeah,
We're
like
really good.
I mean, it's a bit like gorillas, right? When they use like tools, or I think
Yeah.
what I can't remember what animal it is, but they use like rocks to break into. I think it's like clams or something, or like shells. Yeah, they
No. No.
break into like
Otters.
shells or
Otters.
something.
I think. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, animals are smart, man. Like otters, do you know what they do? Do you know what an otter behavior is? They do. So if they have a fish, yeah, they bring it onto the bank of the river. Do you know what they do? They chew off its tail first, right? Now, do you know why?
Menace.
Yeah, so if it goes back in the water, it
So not
can't
so
swim away
annoying.
from them, and they can go back and get it.
Yeah.
Um, but
Menaces.
these creatures apparently show some sort of intelligence. There is a supernatural link to these, which I can talk to you
Yeah,
about
bro.
afterwards, and there's believed related to UFOs and all that shit.
Yeah.
Um, but they reckon it's like a solitary animal. It's always by itself.
Yeah.
Like unless it's got like a little family or something, it'd be by itself. It would roam around by itself, just sort of living life. So vocalizations, there's howls, moans, grunts, whistles. There's actually a form of language that's been reported. Apparently, they speak. They've recorded like them speaking to each other, which kind of gives me chills because
Oh
imagine
shit.
hearing that, right? Um, So, some of these
Yeah.
alleged vocalization recordings have been analyzed by individuals such as retired U.S. Navy cryptologic linguistic Scott Nelson, linguist, not linguistic, linguist Scott Nelson. He analyzed audio recordings from the early 1970s said to be recorded in the Sierra Nevada mountains dubbed the Sierra Sounds, and stated it is definitely a language, it is definitely not human in origin, and it could not have been faked. So, it's
Wow.
they've like this guy, right? This like sort of accredited person. I didn't do some I should have done some background
Yeah.
research on it. Maybe like he's been sort of discredited, but like discredited person from retired U.S. Navy person. He understands all this stuff. He's a linguist and he knows languages and he learns coding from.
Yeah.
He tries to understand them, and he says that it's not human in origin and it could not have been faked.
Holy shit.
Like this
Yeah, no,
whole
that's
ass
crazy to think
language.
about.
Like yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty insane,
Should learn
right?
it.
I'm not heard this. I
Oh
should maybe
fuck
get a
yeah, it's insane.
recording, and I'll show it to us next episode if I can get a recording. But there's a survival expert called Lestrade.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of him. Apparently, he's spoken of strange
Yeah.
vocalization he heard in the wilderness while filming Survivor Man that he stated sounded primate in origin. So this is a survival expert. I've never ever heard of like
Yeah.
Bear Grylls. Do you know who Ed Stafford is? I like Ed Stafford. I've never heard
Yeah.
of like Ed Stafford
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Bear Grylls
That's
mentioning
not bad.
anything like that. Maybe I'll look into that. I should have maybe. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It was weird. I
That is
mean,
really
imagine
crazy to
though,
think
like
about that.
this is a survival expert, right? He knows these lands in and out. He knows how to deal with
Yeah.
like wolves and bears and cougars and things. And
Yeah. Now, how homeboy gonna do with the fucking
yeah, but
the
I
motherfucking?
don't think it's a bit. I don't think it's necessarily like that. That's just stereotyping monkeys there, bro. That's a bit naughty. Shouldn't be doing.
Bro, don't fucking put that on me, bro.
So obviously a big issue of. Do you know what the biggest issue of why people don't believe Sasquatch exists? Like, do you know? Like, guess. Take a
Why?
guess. Take a
Oh
guess.
no,
No,
I don't.
not
I
even
don't
that.
know.
Just take a
No
guess.
proof.
No, because
I
there's
just
not
did.
necessarily like there's
Hello.
animals out there that haven't been studied. So a
Yeah.
big problem
I
is
don't know.
they
Give it to
they
me.
don't know how
Lay it on me.
an ape like that can actually live in the forests of North America.
What?
Not because like it's this big ape
Really?
and it's mythical and it's got a lot of like history, but because of the
Because it's an ape in
conditions,
that
like
condition.
a big part of it being diet
Yeah.
and things like that, and because obviously most apes are like they're adjusted to like they thrive in tropics of
Yeah.
Asia and Africa.
Like,
There's
yeah.
competition with bears and wolves, and they you'd think they'd leave behind shit and evidence, right? Um,
Yeah.
and like
Oh yeah.
But they're believed to eat similar things to bears, like roots, berries, nuts, fruit, fungi, salmon, other fish, like small mammals like rabbits, squirrels. You got bears, you got deer, elk. They are believed to eat deer and elk and things like that. And there's reports of Bigfoot stealing
Yeah.
carrion, which is like dead animals basically, or stealing livestock. So there are
Yeah.
reports, especially like there's a story about the Yowie, which should be
Oh
interested to
shit.
hear in next few episodes. But they're reported to steal like chickens and even sheep. They've been reported to eat sheep and kill chickens and things like that. And
Jesus.
yeah, like it's kind of mad actually. Things like that, like, but like the one thing that's see, I get like roots, berries, nuts, fruit, that sort of shit. Fish, I kind of get, right, and maybe rabbits and squirrels,
Yeah.
maybe
Fish
birds,
I get,
but
yeah.
deer and elk. That comes into the point of
That's the one that's
like how do they kill it? How are they killing? Yeah, they must.
exactly. They
Bro,
throw
imagine
rocks at their
like,
fucking dome.
but why not humans?
Imagine getting trick shot by a fucking
Like there, like
Bigfoot.
I said, in the indigenous culture we're talking about,
Might see
there
a
are stories of like cannibalistic men, right? So
Oh yeah.
why hasn't it been reported of like a Bigfoot attack necessarily? They're always just sightings, right? And they sort of run away, or they
Oh,
look
I
away, or
know.
they throw rocks, or they like yelp
Yeah.
at them, and they howl at the person that they're looking at, and things like that. But like I said, right, all it takes is one person to be telling the truth for something to exist. Do you know what I mean? Like all it takes is one person
Yeah.
to have seen a 7-foot big ape-like man standing in the woods of Oregon, staring at her,
Actually got passed
and
around.
throwing rocks at her. And if that's true, then that means Sasquatch exists. Essentially, that's all it takes is one person to be
Yeah.
telling the truth. But obviously, not everyone's necessarily lying. A lot of people reckon it's misidentification. Things like bears, you know, escaped monkeys.
Yeah.
You see a lot of them. You know, like how we were talking about the escaped cats from in England. You know, in Hertfordshire. You know, you got escaped
Yeah.
apes
Yeah.
from zoos and private collections and things like that, which is really bad, by the way.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
And there's a thing called pareidolia,
It's fucking
which basically means you see shapes that
pareidolia. What's
aren't
that?
there. So, you know, there's like grainy footage
I
of
get you.
Bigfoot.
Yeah.
So,
Like I said,
but it's
the
but
grainy
it could be of a
footage, all that
person. But you
shit.
know, people's minds force them to make out shapes that aren't there because they need to see it. You know, especially in the
Yeah.
environment of what a Bigfoot would live in. People seem, oh my god, that's not a person. That look, you can see the ape-like features. You know, that's a Bigfoot, but they're not. Their shapes don't actually exist. That could be pareidolia, like I just said.
Yeah.
And hoaxes. You know, there's a lot of people like. You know, most people, including Bigfoot believers, you know, they believe that many of the sightings are like hoaxes or misidentified animals. That's the thing is, like I was talking
Yeah.
about, like finding Bigfoot, which I'll talk to you a bit more, like when we move into like the popular culture things. Um, you know, they go in and they try and debunk, they try and get the facts. You know, they do like measurements. How tall is it? And it's that if it's like too high, they're like, it's a bit off. Like we don't believe this person. You know, hold on, I need
Yeah.
to cough. Sorry, I just muted my mic. Don't worry, I muted my mic on the podcast. Um,
Yeah, he said,
but
"Fuck
like
you." I'll cough into the mic on
on
Discord.
Finding Bigfoot, they have done an episode where they've said that they didn't believe the person they were talking to and things. You know,
Yeah.
Gigantopithecus. Um, Gigantopithecus is like
Fucking what?
extinct animal. If you want to read about it,
I think. I think that's what they call them on
yeah,
fucking Ark.
they're like an extinct sort of great ape. I think
Fun
they're like
fact.
huge, bigger than humans.
Yeah.
They say that you know if Bigfoot was real, there's a good chance that's what it was. It was like some sort of Gigantopithecus, things like that.
Yeah.
Um, extinct hominidae. I think that's how you say it. So basically, you know, there's hominidae, whatever it is. You know, you got things like I think Neanderthals come under that, and things like that. There's different, you know, evolutions
Yeah.
of humans from apes, sort of thing. You know, like, well, we think, all right. So we didn't come from apes. We share a common ancestor. So this ancestor split off into two ways, right? So a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch
Yeah.
could be from the other line, from the other side, but like not quite evolved into a monkey or into an ape. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Okay.
So that's what they say. It could be
Yeah.
that, or it could be Gigantopithecus, or it could be an not unidentified, but an sort of undiscovered like great ape in the world, basically. Um,
Yeah.
but like I said, you know, they're always going off of like stories and bad video, and you know, in this day and age, you've got like drones and thermal images. I mean, to be fair, there's some Finding Bigfoot episodes
Yeah.
where they have caught some really cool things on these different. Like, there's this thermal imaging one where they were driving through the woods, and they had the thing, and they can see something walking through the woods on two legs, like a Sasquatch looking thing, walking through the woods on thermal
Huge.
images, that kind of thing. And sorry, I
Yeah.
coughed on the podcast. But yeah, that's sort of like what it is, right? So obviously,
Yeah.
Bigfoot's it's famous, yeah, it's popular. You knew what Bigfoot was going into this,
No, very famous. Yeah.
so obviously popular culture. You got
Yeah.
movies, you got TV shows, you got documentaries such as Finding Bigfoot, which is also a reality show, I'd say. You know, you got podcasts like this one, but there are podcasts literally dedicated to
Yeah.
Bigfoot science, talking about them. You know, there's books, there's games, you know, like movies. There's a couple of movies. I haven't seen a lot. There's TV shows. You know, there's so many
There's a lot. There's
documentaries
a whole
about
lot.
this subject, like so many. There's loads out there because it's an
Yeah.
interesting subject. Because it's sort of like it's like this, right? So a scientist says to you, "Prove to me that Bigfoot exists," and then you basically turn around and say to him, "Prove to me that he doesn't." So it's like having faith, right? I
Totally.
think that's. I had a conversation with my friend who's a Christian, and I said to him, for me, it's like believing, seeing is believing for me, right? And he said, well, having faith
Yeah.
is what it's about. You're supposed to have faith that God is real, sort of thing. And like I said, but can you prove to me that God isn't real? It is real, sorry. And he said, but can you prove that he isn't? And I said, not necessarily, but I guess
Exactly.
we'll find out eventually one day, right? And that's essentially what it's like with these kind of things, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because there's no real proof that you can prove he doesn't exist, but people haven't given us solid proof that he does. So I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, yeah, he don't,
Like we're not
because
going off
I don't know.
scientific
No one
fact. There's
does
no
really.
scientific fact that Sasquatch
Yeah,
doesn't exist. But there's no scientific fact that he does
but
exist.
there's none
It's
that he
all I
does.
think the word's conjecture, I think that's the word I'm looking for.
Exactly.
It's all it's all it's all
Conjection.
it's all stories,
Yeah,
it's all
sounds about right.
videos that can't actually be authenticated. It's
Yeah,
it's people pulling pranks on other people, and it's but there's no proof that it doesn't actually exist. I love the way we act as if like we say
yeah,
Bigfoot as if it's like one guy, like one ape just roaming around. Like oh, we can't prove
yeah,
that he doesn't
yeah. I know.
exist, but
I
like
was going to
we
say that
can't prove
earlier,
that
but
Sasquatch doesn't exist, right? And like I said, there's loads of podcasts.
exactly.
I've seen loads. I've heard loads of podcasts about this. Kind of what inspired me when I came back and talked to you before we started this podcast. When I said to you, "Should we do a podcast?" And you're like,
Mm,
"Yeah." I was like, "All right, let me get my new mic then." And then I mean, we were stuck on a name for months,
yeah.
right? And then I found the name. What did I do? When I found the name, I
Oh
got
fuck
straight
yeah,
on,
bro. That
made
that
the
was the whole
logo,
thing.
made the artwork, got ready, got my mic sorted, and then I think like 2 days later we recorded the first episode and uploaded it straight
Sure, bro.
to straight on Halloween, 6 p.m. Sunday, every Sunday. Obviously, sorry, we do apologize for missing last week, but it's fine. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
my fault.
it's Will's fault, but don't hold him to it. But it's fine. We are brand new at this. We get the ball rolling more and more as we go along, and it is what it is. Now it's Bigfoot Sasquatch season, and there's books. Oh man, there's so many books. I can't. Um,
Books.
I
I actually
mean,
haven't seen any
Finding Bigfoot
books.
themselves did a book, but it's not. It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't necessarily like a storybook. It was more like an
Did they?
informative sort of. Yeah, like when you
Yeah,
bought. Do you remember like when
information
you
book.
used to buy like Black Ops 2 and
Yeah,
they'd come with that
yeah,
book, those big books? It was kind of like that.
yeah, bro.
All the
Yeah,
stuff, all the crew, all the equipment that they use, all that sort of thing. And obviously, there's games, right? There's
yeah,
one of the big games is that Finding Bigfoot game, or the Bigfoot. I think it's just called Bigfoot, right? It's like that. It's like that
I'm not actually sure what
Phasmophobia
it's
style
called, but no, I
game.
know what you're on about.
You use the equipment to sort of find and I think you have to kill him. But I mean, now you can actually play as Bigfoot and kill your friends.
Yeah, which I
I
might
said to
actually
Tom like and Alex that we
see
all
about
need to
getting.
get this game and play it. That'd be great. Very
We
true.
need to get a bunch of games,
But
bro.
obviously other games. Red Dead 2, Undead Nightmare was a big one. You know, that whole
Yeah,
Sasquatch mission, killing them off and things like that. Um, what GTA 5? I actually
yeah,
did that.
that
Obviously, it was a
one.
man. So the GTA 5
Uh,
Bigfoot came from obviously
yeah,
San Andreas. San Andreas's biggest Easter egg sort of slash myth was Bigfoot in the forest, right? And then obviously they played on
yeah,
that when they remade Los Santos or like San Andreas, right? They remade that into GTA 5, and obviously they brought
yeah,
that back to life and things like that. So that like that. Um, there's some other games I think that involve Bigfoot. There's loads of Bigfoot Easter eggs in games. There's a Bigfoot Easter egg in The Crew. I think it's either The Crew or The Crew 2. you go to a specific part of the map
Yeah.
and Bigfoot's there. I think you can run him over. There's some old school motocross game. There's one in a golf game. Some old school golf game. There's a Bigfoot Easter egg.
Oh,
You know, there's loads of. It's such a big thing in in
yeah.
popular culture and things like that. And actually, during the COVID pandemic, yeah, they actually used Bigfoot
Yeah.
as like a mascot for social distancing because obviously he's elusive. Nobody can see him, so they used him
Uh-huh.
as like a vessel. I guess you could say. I don't want to go too deep into it. Like a vessel for
I get
promoting
you. Yeah.
um social distancing and things and during the
Gang
COVID
away.
pandemic because obviously if Bigfoot can do it, you can do it, that kind of thing. So like even then,
Yeah.
man, like they're using him as that. Like there's towns that literally like their whole personality is Bigfoot. Do you know what I mean? Like Bigfoot statues, like
Yeah.
Sasquatch statues in the
Yeah.
town square and things like that. And like I think like remember when I mentioned Willow Creek or wherever it was, I think it was Willow Creek. The place like that, like
Yeah.
the Bigfoot capital, things like that. Like it's they're cool, they're cool. But
Yeah.
moving on to the skunk ape now. Um, so the skunk ape, right? So the skunk ape's apparently considered more aggressive. There's actually an image, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna get it up for you guys. This is like a really famous image apparently of the skunk ape. I'm not sure if I'm not saying this is 100% real. Nobody knows if it's 100% real. Um, I don't know if this is real. If this was if it's just used as a way of um visualizing this creature, right? So let me just add this image for you guys now on the
Yeah.
screen. Oh, that's not the right one. Where is it? Sorry about that. Where is it gone? Did I not did I not save it?
Any pieces
Um
somewhere, bro?
oh it's not a JPEG file apparently. Did it not save as a JPEG file? It didn't save it. Alright, hold on. I do apologise. Alright, so while I'm doing this, tell me your thoughts now at the moment.
No, like as I said, it's very interesting because it's just one of those things. It's very interesting because it's pretty much a monkey. It's
Yeah.
pretty much just a larger monkey, but it's not built for the habitat that a monkey is normally in. You know,
Yeah, and
you know what I
that
mean? You know what I mean, homeboy? Just not
yeah.
made for the environment that it's in. Yeah,
Do you believe
homeboy
in Bigfoot?
thrives.
You don't.
Personally, I don't know. I don't. But it's something that I wouldn't
Alright, I'm gonna copy
shoot
this to
off as
you.
it doesn't
I'm gonna
exist.
send it. Apparently this is the skunk ape, and I don't know if this is
Uh,
considered a real photo.
what the fuck? No.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's it,
Jesus.
but this is like the popular. This is the popular one for the skunk ape, right? Sorry guys, let me just.
Yeah.
So this is what the photo looks like, as you can see here. So let me just sort of make it a bit smaller. But this is the subject we're talking about now. In the future, guys, we'll make more of like an effort with the artwork and stuff like that. We might even make where it's a video podcast where it's me and Will talking. But for now, we're not into that kind of setup. So the skunk ape,
I like
also known
people.
as the swamp ape and Florida Bigfoot, inhabits the forests and swamps of some southeastern United States, most notably, obviously, in Florida. It's a bit smaller than a regular Bigfoot. It's between 5 and 7 feet, and it's called a skunk ape due to its foul smell, which is described as being similar to a skunk. Skunk ape has actually been a part of Florida, Georgia, and Alabama folklore since the European settler period. Seminole or Seminole culture, which they are a tribe that still live in like Florida and that sort of area. Uh, Culture includes stories of
Yeah.
foul-smelling, physically powerful and secretive creature called Etsi Kapkaki, I think it's called, and which basically translates to cannibal giant. The BFRO has archived
Yeah.
333 sightings in Florida, 137 in Georgia, and 100 from Alabama. So there are like stories of like man-sized monkeys raiding food stores and stalking fishermen along the store. Like these are like old school stories, right? Back in the day. Um,
Yeah.
so reports of the skunk ape were particularly common in the 1950s into the 70s. Like by 1974, sightings of a large, foul-smelling, hairy, ape-like creature which ran upright on two legs were reported in the suburban neighborhoods of Miami-Dade County that border large wilderness expanses such as the Everglades and Big Cypress Natural Preserve. So obviously, when you think of Bigfoot, you think of forests, right? You think of like not. You don't think of like tropical, like
Yeah.
swamps, like Florida is. You think of forests and that, but this
Yeah. You
apparently
only
they live
think
in
of
like the
yeah.
Everglades and things like that, and obviously that they have to. They obviously still have to, you know. I mean, there are cougars in Florida as well, but I mean they're called Florida Panthers. Several notable sightings occurred in the 1970s, including a corroborated account by two Palm Beach County Sheriff deputies. So these are two police officers named Marvin Lewis and Ernie Milner.
Okay.
They
Yeah.
reported that a tall ape-like animal stalked them through a grove before it was fired upon to ward it off. Obviously, if an animal's following you, you try and scare it off with a gun, right? Because obviously you need to protect yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So following a footprint trail, the pair recovered a hare snagged on a barbed wire fence line that had been pushed down. Right. I don't know what else came of that. I don't think anything really came of
Yeah.
that. But obviously, the skunk ape has been widely adopted across South and Central Florida as a mascot for the Florida wilderness and rural culture. The cryptid has appeared in numerous roadside businesses and attractions. So obviously, and TV commercials and signs.
Adopted it.
They use it. They commercialize it.
Yeah. Yeah.
During the COVID-19 pandemic, the several Florida businesses use the skunk ape's reported foul smell as given incentive to remain at a distance and evasive nature to promote social
Yeah.
distancing, sort of thing, right? So they use that again because obviously it's elusive. They use
Yeah.
that again to promote social distancing. So Finding Bigfoot, right? They've done episodes on the Yowie. I think they've done the Yeti. Yeah, they did the Yeti. The Yeti and the Yowie are apparently more violent. Like they're known for killing things. They've done the
Yeah.
skunk ape episode, and during the skunk ape episode is really cool. Because they go to this home that's apparently sort of like they believe it's on a skunk ape's territory, and they've taken pictures, and there's a handprint on the glass door, and it's like a greasy sort of handprint, like something
Yeah.
like dirty. It's like, and it's a huge handprint, like
Yeah.
huge handprint. It's quite an eerie episode actually. You should watch it. It. Like you said, you don't believe, but you find it cool, right? We don't believe in any of these things really, but we love to watch
Yeah.
shit about them. So I think you should
Yeah.
watch
Yeah.
it. And and it's supposedly more aggressive. I think it's more of like a sort of like a horror folklore story than it is like a sort of like a, oh wow, there's like a
Yeah.
Bigfoot, or there's like Sasquatch running around in the forests of North America and things, things like that, and it's cool. Like I love this shit. And obviously, I wanted to cover the skunk ape as well because we were gonna cut it up right into Bigfoot, skunk ape, Yowie, Yeti, Yeren,
Yeah.
Almus, but that's a lot of episodes, and we wanted the Christmas season to
That
sort
is
of be
indeed.
the 3 weeks leading up to the Christmas week
Oh fuck.
to be about Bigfoot, and the Yeti and things like that. We
Yeah.
wanted that to sort of be that season, um, and so yeah, like that's sort of like what it's like basically. And
Yeah.
so a lot, obviously, misidentification happens with skunk apes because there are black bears and things like there are. I think there's wolves. There's cougars in Florida and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
There's obviously still, this there's still animals in there that will
Still fucking
um
yeah.
things like that. So there's not too much on the skunk ape really. I mean, there's probably like you'd have to go like deep into it, into like personal sort of culture. But
Yeah.
sadly, we only get a week to plan these episodes, and obviously both of us work. So I mean, obviously, Sasquatch season. Maybe it's like a yearly thing. Every December, first 3 weeks, we go into different sort of Sasquatch style things. We go into more things. But obviously, next episode will be the Yeti. I'm kind of looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
Because the Yeti's kind of interesting
Yeah.
to me.
Wildlands are the Yeti Easter egg.
Yeah.
Wildlands.
I think there's a couple games with a
Easter
Yeti
egg.
Easter egg, right?
What else is there? What else?
Oh, Far Cry.
There's
Yeah,
got to be
Far
a
Cry
Far
actually.
Cry.
No, Far Cry doesn't just have Yeti Easter eggs. Far Cry had an entire Yeti DLC. Yeah, Far Cry 4. Far Cry
What
5
the
had
fuck, did
a
it?
very Bigfoot Easter egg.
I think Battlefield had one.
Maybe.
Battlefield
There
4,
are
I think
there
it
are
was.
videos on this. We should maybe check it out, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, Far Cry had a big one that you never really solved it. Everyone tried to solve it, but I just don't think you can. And yeah, it was the Crew 2, by the way. I think didn't Ghosts have one as well? Odd Ghosts might have.
I don't know. Didn't you get to play
What
as
in
the fucking
Ghosts?
Bigfoot? I think so. Well, I mean, I know
No,
you
I
got to play
think you
as
got
a
to play as
Predator.
Michael Myers as well.
You got
I
to play
don't
as
think you got to
Mike.
play as
Yeah,
Bigfoot though.
Mike.
But I don't know. I got like this video
Fuck no.
up. Oh, I do apologise for those who had to hear that. The games featured in this
Yeah.
video aren't listed. But I can read them out to you real quick. But yeah, there's loads of games with these kind of things. In them. I love Easter eggs in games though, like a lot. I like when they're cool, sort of. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Battlefield is one of them. So it's a golf game
Yeah,
that I
Battlefield's
mentioned in
fucking
this
nuts with
video.
these. Yeah.
The Crew, yeah. There's an army shooter sort of thing. There was one on there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, Battlefield. Do you know what? Wasn't it the one where
Yeah.
you
I know.
shoot into the
Battlefield's
mountains and you
always
hear a
got an Easter
roar?
egg like that.
Yeah, I remember that
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Wildlands. But it wasn't really a Yeti. It was like that sniper
Yeah,
guy, wasn't
Wildlands,
it?
obviously.
Um.
Yeah. But,
Let me just. I'm just scrolling through this video trying to find the different games. GTA obviously. GTA 5. GTA 5 was the last one, I think. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot. You know. That might not even just.
fucking
That might not even just be the.
shitloads.
That's probably both. Yeah. No, that's probably not even all the Yeti ones, but like.
No,
Yeah, like
it's gonna be loads.
it's in a lot of popular culture, and
Yeah.
that's why I want to talk about. Like, I love this. I love finding Bigfoot. I'm gonna go watch some tonight. I think, just for the sake of it. Yeah, yeah. I mean, why not? You know what I mean? So next week we'll be talking about. Let me get the schedule up for everybody. So this is the schedule. Where is it? Yeah, so it's on the 5th, which is today's episode. It's the Legend of Bigfoot, also covering the skunk ape. And then you've got on the 12th is the Yeti also covering Almas and the Yeren. And then on the 19th, we have the Australian Yowie. But remember, guys, we got a Christmas episode going on Christmas Day, so it won't be on the Sunday after that. It'll be on the Saturday, which will be Christmas Day, where we'll be discussing like Christmas related stuff, right? Christmas related monsters, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And maybe some other stuff. Who knows? And then I'll look into we may be having like a week off at New Year. We might do, we might not. But we'll let you guys know. We'll let you guys know anyway. But yeah, this is the schedule. The Sasquatch season. But I mean, that's pretty much all I covered for Bigfoot. Like, there's a lot to go into, but like, it would be a long episode. And to be honest, I don't want to do a long episode again.
I'm fucked.
I think I'd rather come back to this subject. Like, we're definitely going to come back to skinwalkers. Ghost stories is always going to be a thing, right? It's always going to be.
Oh, fucking.
It's always going to fill up this podcast at some point. You know, there's always going to be a ghost stories episode coming out now and then. You know, we're going to revisit subjects and with new knowledge. You know, maybe talk about them with other people in the future. Maybe get someone else on. But I think we've covered everything I've got today written down. But yeah, bro, like I said, I'm like, you know, watch some Finding Bigfoot. I'll find some of the good episodes for you. Find some of the best moments, and it's fun. It's just fun. It's not like it doesn't necessarily have to be real, but it's just fun. But guys, thank you for listening. I hope you guys did enjoy the video. Finally onto the one and only top cryptid himself, aka Bigfoot. Mr. Big Toes. Bro, imagine someone with a foot fetish getting with Sasquatch. Jesus, they would be happy. They are winning.
Bro, they winning.
Big
chungus. Big chungus toes.
Big chungus toes.
That's the next cryptid, guys. Big chungus.
Bro, I kind of want that on a t-shirt.
Bigfoot.
Just like a Bigfoot like outline with big chungus
with
toes.
Massive toe.
Yeah, with
chungus
big
toes.
Juicy toes. Anyway, right, this is gonna go in a
Chungus
weird direction.
Big juicy toes I want to suck on. Yeah, podcast yet? Fuck.
I'm not editing anything in this podcast, so I do apologize. But anyway, everyone, I hope you're staying safe in the current climate of everything. Hope everyone is doing good. Hope you're staying safe, and we'll see you next episode. We alright, guys. Check out our link tree. We'll have the link for the Spotify, the Anchor. We have a Twitch channel. We have an Instagram. We have a TikTok. We got everything now. We may do a live streaming episode one day, just not right now. We'll plan that. But thank you so much for listening.
Yeah.
For those listening on Spotify, Anchor,
yes, sir.
Those watching on YouTube. Much love. God bless. Stay spooky.
Goodbye, guys.
They say it will.
Your boobs.
Stay spooky.
Stay spooky. Your boobs.